Hello, Nooksack Valley School District parents. My name is Katie Brown. I'm the principal of Nooksack Elementary School, and all three of your elementary principals are here again to share with you some information about reopening our elementary schools, and this will start Tuesday, October 13th. So some topics that we will go over in this presentation are our current plans for reopening our elementary school and our target dates, information about learning packets, face coverings, social distancing, what recess and lunch will look like, restroom use, health and safety protocols, what happens if someone gets sick, what to bring on the very first day on the 13th or the 14th, and information about parents and visitors, as well as ensuring that we stay connected during this time. So feel free to fast forward and rewind this presentation as many times as you need to review these different topics as we go. And before we get into all those topics, we just all need to pause for a minute and just celebrate all of the wins that we have achieved together so far. Who ever thought we would find ourselves in this situation where we would be in a pandemic, we'd be starting remotely in all of our schools, and we have just been blown away by our students, our teachers, and our staff, as well as our families and our caregivers and our community support. So we just want to take a moment and recognize everything that we have accomplished so far. And we really rooted our year this year in the 3 R's, relationships, routines, and resilience. And we've been so impressed with the level of relationships that our teachers and students have been able to foster even through Zoom and through the screen, through their assignments, and with your support. There is absolutely no way that we would have been able to pull this off without you, parents, caregivers. I know that many families are supporting each other in big ways, as well as our community partners and our churches. So thank you, virtual high five. We really appreciate you, and we look forward to this next chapter, starting with reopening our elementary schools. Here's some more information about that.
Hello everyone, my name is Kevin DeVere. I'm the principal at Everson Elementary School, and I'm really excited to be here to share some important news about reopening of our schools to in-person learning. And so the current plan is, as you see here on this slide, only working with the Whatcom County Health Department, as we have been all along, and with their approval and their guidance. Our plan is starting next week to reopen our schools to all kids on October 13th in a hybrid model, and I'll share with you a little bit more detail on that in just a moment. But basically the hybrid model is we've got 2 groups of kids that come on different days, just to reduce the number of kids that are on campus at any one time. So that would start next week, and then after a couple weeks, we would strive to move toward in-person learning 4 days a week for everybody. That would be Tuesday through Fridays, and Mondays would be learning at home. So here is a little bit more detail on what we mean by hybrid. So like I'd mentioned before, basically we want to have smaller groups of kids here to start, and so there'd be an A group that would come on Tuesdays and Thursdays, in-person learning, and a B group that would come on Wednesdays and Fridays. That's for kindergarten through 5th grade, and that would start on Tuesday, the 13th, and our initial plan is that that would go for a couple of weeks, and in those weeks, Monday would be the at-home learning. So your kids would have in-person learning 2 days a week, and then Monday and the other days that they're at home would be at-home learning. The purpose of doing this hybrid model is to just help everybody to practice a safe transition back to school. Pretty much everything we do around here now is just different. The routines around being able to be together safe are just need to be practiced. They're just different than what we have done. So we want to focus on practicing and learning those new routines, and to be able to go kind of slowly and carefully. Of course, we're always wanting to build relationships with our students and to help students get to know each other, and that would be enhanced with smaller groups. And then And that the learning at home during those 2 weeks will look a little bit different when kids aren't here. There'll be a little bit more independent practice. There won't be any Zooms when kids are working at home because the teacher will be supporting the kids with what they need to do at home. It'd be more kind of like homework that we're used to.
Hi, Nooksack Valley families. I'm Megan Vickery. I'm principal at Sumas Elementary. You will get to look forward to this week your child's teacher reaching out to you with your class lists and whether you're A or B for those first 2 weeks. Some of the students may have adjusted class lists. This was necessary based on the number of students we can fit in a classroom with social distancing, and also the number of students who decided to continue on with NV at home. We are really working together this year. Our teachers are meeting every single week across the district by grade level so that they're all aligned and are communicating the same thing. Super important in this time of transition, and we're actually really pleased with how it's working together. Group A will start on October 13th, and Group B will be seeing you on October 14th. What if my child is not coming to school in person? If NV at home or NV online Edgenuity is working for your family and you made the decision to continue on, that's great. You may have a shift in your child's teacher, as we had a large number of students who did return to in-person learning. And so we had to make a few adjustments. They will be reaching out to you shortly, maybe later this week. And you will continue, if you're at NV at home, to follow the same instructional sequence that our students in person will be doing here at school. And our Edgenuity students will just continue on with their lessons as they have been doing.
So our learning packet pickups have been happening every Friday since we've opened school. Thank you for your support in coming and picking those up for your students. Our last packet pickup day will be this Friday, October 9th. After that, the students who are returning to school will no longer need to do packet pickup. We can give them all the supplies that they would need on the days that they're here. For students that are staying at home for this part of the year, NV at home students, your packets will be delivered every Monday. And so since Monday is an at-home learning for all students, we'll make sure we bring those to you and we just drop them on the doorstep, or if someone's home, we can give you that from a distance for the upcoming week. So you no longer need to pick up packets, but this Friday we hope to see you one last time and appreciate your support. Will my student need to wear a mask when we return to school? Yes, absolutely. Staff and students are expected to wear a mask at all times while in the school building or on school transportation. Masks have been proven to be the absolute #1 most effective way to stop the spread of the virus, and we're committed to ensuring that we have masks on and available in each of our schools. We've had questions about face shields or the neck gaiters as an alternative, and we are not allowed to wear face shields or gaiters as the primary face covering because they've been shown to be not as effective. So please send your children to school with a face mask. One on their face and an extra in the backpack would be great. Accommodations can be made to this if there's a medical need. So please reach out to your child's teacher, to your principal, and contact us and let you know if your doctors have recommended that your child wear a face shield or a gaiter, and we're happy to talk about accommodations for that. There's some other factors we need to think about if that's the case, so just reach out to us. Masks can be removed during lunch and recess. Recess will be outside, so as long as students can maintain distance, and we have some plans to support that, they can take a mask break at recess time. During lunch, of course, they need their mask off so they can eat, and we're making sure that we structure our lunchtime in our classrooms to not be a social time. So recess outside can be the social time where students have their masks off, but during lunch inside will be some listening time, listening to some books, maybe some a film or a podcast, something that students can eat, and it's also some downtime or some quiet time. Students should provide their own masks, so please be on the lookout for masks that feel comfortable for your child and put an extra one in their backpack if you can. We can have masks available for our students if there's anyone that needs one day, if we're unable to provide your own, just please communicate with us. But we'd appreciate it if families would provide masks for their child and make sure we wash them every day.
So when we are on campus, we want to make sure that everybody knows that we will be practicing social distancing, and we want to share a little bit about what those requirements are. And so we all have plans in each of our schools, and they're to provide as much distancing as possible at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, and during transition times. So when students are in their classrooms, they'll have spots where they'll be able to be seated 6 feet apart from each other, and they'll have an assigned seat in their classrooms. But that said, I mean, it'll be a little bit different, but our classrooms also will be welcoming. We're planning on being child-friendly and having fun and laughing together and learning together and building relationships, just as always, just with a couple different restraints from usual, like the masks and the distancing. But it's not going to be a military-run operation, no smiling and this, that, and the other. It's going to be school. We're an elementary school. These are kids. We're thankful to be with your children, and we're going to be reasonable and child-friendly through it all. Students will be, and this is just part of the safety too, is they'll be in bubbles or in cohorts of students as much as possible, and that'll be by class. So when they're eating lunch, they're with the same group of kids. When they're out at recess on the playground, they'll be with the same group of kids. And so that is a different impact. They won't be able to stretch their friendships as much at school by reaching into other classes during this time, but hopefully it's a short amount of time. And they still will be able to build strong friendships with the kids in their class. We will be able to use common areas, like I mentioned, the playground for sure. In some cases, our gym could be used with certain numbers of kids, but when we're in those spaces, we have to have masks and maintain the distancing too. And then any movement or transitions within the school, we've got markers on the floor to make sure traffic is, we're all bunched up in the hallways, and as much as possible, we're going to be reducing movement through the hallways as well. So I just mentioned a little bit about recess, and I want to give some more detail because it will be different, but we're definitely going to be getting kids outside. They'll have recesses and breaks multiple times during the day, and probably more than usual, just because of things just being different. We need kids to move around. We need to take breaks from our masks. And so more than ever, these kind of movement breaks and mask breaks will be important. And so on our playgrounds, there'll be different zones, so we don't have, so the bubbles that I mentioned before can be maintained by classes, and that the classes don't mix. They'll be assigned to different areas, and distancing will be maintained, but they'll be able to rotate through the areas. And so on one day or 1 week, they might be in one zone, and then another day or another week they'd be in another zone, so they can enjoy different activities that we're all working to provide in those areas. The playground can be used, like the equipment on the playground. It will be sanitized regularly, and so that would be an added precaution. It'll also be restricted, that our playground will only be able to be used by our school students during the school day. After hours, the playground will remain closed. And as extra precaution too, that we're washing or sanitizing our hands before we go out to recess, and then when we come in from recess, we'll wash and sanitize our hands. And just to make sure that, that nothing, when we've been outside of the building, that we're clean. And then we want to just make sure too that our families know that kids need to be prepared to be outside every day. And so raincoats, if it's raining, I mean, we got to take mask breaks, and the only way that kids can take off their masks is being outside. So please make sure that your kids have what they need to be warm and to be dry, and all those things, because we're going to be outside a lot regardless of the weather.
What will lunch look like? We are being thoughtful about keeping students in cohorts, so lunch will be in the classroom. Students can bring their own lunch from home, or they can have a school lunch. It will be a sack lunch that will be brought to our door. Of course, during lunch, you get to take off your mask and have a mask break. And then either, depending on the school, you'll get to go to recess either before lunch or after lunch. What are the restroom guidelines? Teachers will let students know which restroom is designated by their classroom for their use. Students can use the restroom one at a time. They must wash their hands after using the restroom, and there's also increased cleaning in each of the bathrooms throughout the day.
Another question that we get is, will there be health screenings before students come to school? And again, the answer is yes. This is mandatory for all students and staff entering our building. So we have two ways students get to school, on the bus or they get dropped off. So if a student's riding the bus, we will have a paraeducator or a staff member on each bus this year. And we will ask that students remain distanced outside while waiting for the bus. And that will take some parent coaching and support as well. So thanks for having these conversations with your children. They should have their mask on, distance outside. A para will take their temp and before they board the bus. And that shouldn't take too long. We know at the beginning with any new routine, it's going to take a little bit longer, but we'll work out the kinks and it will get smoother. If your child's temperature is 100.4 or higher, we are not allowed to bring that student to school. So we will ask them to remain at home. We know at bus stops, the bus stops might not be right next to a child's home. So we will ask the child, if the parent's there, we will have the child go home with the parent. If they're not, then our staff member will call the school. We will connect with you via phone and ask you to come to the bus stop to get your child. And if there is no parent available at that time, then we will have your student sit in a isolated seat on the bus, bring them to school, and then we'll keep them in the nurse's office until we can contact a parent to come pick them up. Students who are dropped off at school, we will let each building know how drop-off procedures will work, and there will be also a staff member at those drop-off areas. So as parents pull up to the curb or wherever the drop-off area is, before your child gets out of the car, we will have a staff member do a touch-free temp check. And again, if it's 100.4 or higher, then the student will need to return home. If not, then we'll make sure that their mask is on. They'll go ahead and get out of the car and come into school. So all of our staff members will also monitor students before riding the bus, on the bus, during the day for just other signs of illness, and make sure that we're here to support kids if they're feeling sick in any way. So once students are at school, what happens if someone in my child's class gets sick or my own child gets sick? So as we always do, teachers are pretty in tune with our students, and we can tell if something is a little off. So if a student starts showing signs of illness or they tell us that they're not feeling well, we will walk them to the nurse's office and parents will be contacted immediately and that student can go home. So our district point person for everything health and safety is our amazing school nurse, Miss Lisa Diaz. And Lisa works directly with the health department on all matters health and safety. So we will use Lisa's guidance this year, as well as our contacts at the health department for any case of a child who appears to be sick. So we will work with the family, with all of you, to determine when it's safe for that student to return to school, depending on the circumstances. And in general, students who are sick or who have symptoms of COVID should be kept home for about 72 hours before returning to school. And again, Lisa Diaz will call you when this happens and give you very specific directions. If a student, a teacher, or anyone in your family has tested positive for COVID, or who has a close contact, who has had close contact with a person who has tested positive, then the health department will provide us guidance that is more based on the number of days, depending on that positive test. So in general, there will be a requirement to self-isolate for 10 days after getting a positive test. And if you've had close contact with someone who has a positive test, then right now it's a 14-day requirement to isolate and not return to school. So the good news is that since we did start remotely, we're getting this distance learning thing down. So in this case, if a child has to stay home for 10 or 14 days or longer, we will just continue to have them learning remotely. And we have staff and students that know how to do that well. So we hope that that won't cause too much disruption to a child's learning if we need to stay home for longer periods of time. And if a staff member gets sick, it's the same thing. They won't be able to come to school either. So some of our teachers will also need to be teaching remotely. And that's part of this year where we just ask for your grace and your patience, which you always provide. And we'll work together and make sure that, that everyone's safe and feels cared for, students and staff and families.
You might be wondering, in addition to all the safety measures we've talked about so far, what else is happening to keep things clean and safe while your children are at school? And so we have a few points here that we wanted to make sure you were clear about. But high touch surfaces like doorknobs and light switches and things like that, tabletops, desktops. High touch surfaces will be cleaned using approved safety projects throughout the day. Students will have their own supplies, and so they'll have either bins or baggies if we're in math and they're needing counters and things like that, instead of sharing a common box of counters like we typically do. Each child will have their own baggie of the supplies that they need, and that will be throughout the day. Students and staff will be washing and sanitizing our hands multiple different times throughout the day. When kids arrive, that'll be the first thing they do. Before they leave, that'll be the last thing they do. Before meals, after meals, before recesses, after meals, we're going to be clean around here. Classrooms and other shared areas, we'll have sanitizers everywhere around the school. Adults will use gloves when handing out lunches and snacks to students. And then when in doubt, we're all going to be remembering the 3 W's. We're going to be wearing our mask, washing our hands, and watching our distance between each other. You might also be wondering, what should you send to school with your child on the first day? This first day is different than other first days. And so we wanted to give you a little bit of information about that. So a backpack would be handy. And in the backpack, if each child could bring a water bottle filled at home would be great. Students will all need a mask. They'll need to wear the mask, but it'd also probably be really good to have an extra mask in their backpack. They should have their lunch and a snack if they're bringing one from home. And so in terms of more specific school supplies, we do ask that you do not send the Chromebook to school next week. Keep the Chromebooks at home because during the hybrid schedule, your student's going to need the Chromebook on the days that they're at home. So keep the Chromebook at home. And then, to be honest, we're not exactly all lined up yet on other materials that maybe should be brought to school. And so your child's teacher will contact you about any specifics. If things that they've already sent home that they want to have come back, your child's teacher will be communicating about that. And if you have questions, if you reach out to them and ask them that question, they'll give you the answer that you're looking for. So those things at school on the first day would be helpful.
Can parents or visitors come in the building? We love our volunteers and we love our watchdogs, and we look forward to having you in again soon. For right now, we're asking that we only have visitors that are essential. If you need to pick up your child from school for an appointment or another reason, you certainly can do that. Please come in and check in at the front desk. And if you're planning to be here for longer than 15 minutes, we will ask that you take your temperature and fill out our attestation form. Of course, everybody entering is asked to use sanitizer and wear a mask. We are so appreciative of your communication with us. It's been phenomenal. We have made contact with every child, and that is so important in every family. So let's keep that going. I think most of you have probably already signed up for Remind. If you haven't done so, make sure you do. It's just an easy way for us to communicate back and forth, and you can choose the mode that comes in, whether it be email or through your phone and text. We will also be hosting some family Zoom meetings this week. If there's any questions that arose after watching this PowerPoint that you're still wondering, so Wednesday, October 5th from 5:30 is the English version, and then we'll also host a Spanish night the same night at 7 p.m. We'll send out the link via email, and or you can just give us a call or email us if you have a question and are unable to attend these times. We're really excited to have your children back and to get to see you again. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. We know it's a lot of information, but we also know that everyone is eager to get back to school and that this information can be helpful. We just wanted to close and end this presentation with a reminder of what's grounding us right now and what we're going to be using moving forward. So we, as I said at the beginning, have been thinking a lot about the 3 R's this year: relationships, routines, and resilience. And how do we help foster a climate where we can build that within our students during this tough time, with our staff and our teachers and with our families, and really with ourselves. So we ask everyone in our community to continue to think about these words, be there for each other, and we will continue to build resilience during this time of transition back to school, knowing that there's going to be some mistakes and there's going to be some wonderful times and some challenging times, and we will figure it out together. And lastly, we also have the 3 W's. So we want to make sure that whenever in doubt at school or with all of the nuances of our procedures, that we always come back to wear a mask, wash our hands, and watch our distance. And if we can do those 3 things consistently, then we're confident that we can remain in school. It's a community effort. We need everyone in our community to follow these guidelines as well. Our schools are a reflection of our community, and we want to stay open. So thank you for your support, and we look forward to seeing your kids next week. Please contact your building principal if you have any further questions. Thank you.